There's nothing quite like a good grudge match, a bout built on tensions that you really just cannot fake. In the former training partners Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, the bond they shared was quickly replaced by a dramatic feud. And finally, after years of waiting, these top welterweight contenders are finally going to step into the cage and settle their differences. This is UFC Fighters Predict Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. Henry Cejudo. What better way to kick things off than with a word from the King of Cringe himself, the former two-weight world champion who, I don't know if you know this, also has an Olympic gold medal. And while Henry Cejudo is quite complimentary of Colby's All-American wrestling pedigree, he does seem to be stacking his chips with Jorge Masvidal. That said, if Jorge hasn't brought his A-game in the wrestling department, Triple C believes that Covington can make this a very hard night out for him. But even with his doubts being what they are, Cejudo knows that Masvidal's experience and general well-roundedness could well prove to be a huge difference maker on the night itself.
Oh man, I'm going for George, but man, if he's not working as wrestler, different transitions to get off from bottom, George is going to be in for a rude night. Remember, Colby Covington, I believe he's an All-American wrestler, so he knows how to ride people, which is, he could do that to Kamaru Usman because he's an also wrestler, but it's just the simple fact that he's fighting Jorge Masvidal. I think he's gonna shoot him for a double right away. And for Masvidal, he's gonna have to go for broke, man. I think you take those same chances with those flying knees, a lot of that blitz stuff, because when Colby stays on that leg, man, he's like a dog on that bone.
So with that being said, we have one prediction in favor of Jorge, even if it ain't the most confident pick you'll see on this list. He might be retired, but to say that Henry Cejudo has a voice within the MMA world would be an understatement. Only time will tell if he put his faith on the right man. Stephen Thompson. He's the nicest fighter in the game, a fan favorite who is just as likely to greet you with a smile as he is to spinning hook kick you on the side of the head. And with an eye on the upcoming showdown between these two top 10 welterweights, it turns out Wonderboy is a guy who has his own personal stake in the UFC 272 main event, given that he is a welterweight who has fought and beaten Jorge Masvidal in the past. But for Stephen Thompson, even though he knows exactly what Jorge is capable of, he still thinks that Colby's wrestling and gas tank will prove to be the difference come fight night, just as he experienced in his last bout against Belal Muhammad. Wonderboy seems to think that the powerful, relentless wrestling of chaos will prove to be too much for him on the night. But like most of us, he refuses to rule out Masvidal's explosive finishing ability. Sure, a lot of the fans and odds makers will favor Colby coming in. However, Jorge's ever-expanding highlight reel stands as conclusive proof of his ability to really upset any fighter's rhythm. Wonderboy's picking Colby, but he appears to be rooting for Jorge.
Man, if you gave me a bag of money, I'm going Colby. But last time I bet against him, man, he's finished him. He's finished guys. So it's hard to really be fully set on Colby. I've fought Masvidal, so I want Masvidal to win.
Michael Bisping. He might not be giving us an outright pick one way or another, but as a man who has found himself in more than a few grudge matches over the years, Michael Bisping is in a uniquely interesting place to comment. And with his eye on both Colby and Jorge, Bisping explains just how different it is to fight someone who you once called a friend, someone who you now quite frankly cannot stand. It's a dangerous headspace to be in going into a firefight, because no matter how hard you try, there is a very strong chance that emotions are going to come into play. And for Bisping, as soon as fight week is underway, we'll begin to see who of the two is going to be able to lead the dance. The press conference is going to be truly insane. Both guys are intimately familiar with the other. Hell, they even lived together at one point in time. So while, sure, the count ain't picking a winner for the benefit of our video, but his prediction is that the matchup is going to be crazy, and that is good enough for us.
You don't like the guy, you're not a fan of the guy, you don't like some of the things that he says in interviews, and then of course when you're going to fight, that is all amplified, and you start to hate, that's not the right word, but you start to really strongly dislike them and you want to beat them. You want to beat them badly. Now, as we know, Colby Covington, he's only been knocked out once, or it was a TKO, which he actually disputed, so easier said than done. But I'm telling you, I can't wait for the build-up. We haven't even started yet. We haven't seen the countdown shows, the embeddeds, the press conferences, all the rest of it. Make no mistake, this fight's going to be a big one. There's a reason why these guys are headlining a pay-per-view and there isn't a title on the line. It's because it's bad blood. As I say, it's a major grudge match, and these grudge matches tend to result in big sales.
Mike Perry. Are we alone in missing Platinum Mike Perry's presence in the UFC? Sure, he didn't always win, and he's been known to find himself in a bizarre controversy from time to time, but to this day, he remains one of the most colorful characters in the sport. Thankfully, Perry is now finding a new lease of life as a bare-knuckle boxer, having edged out the tough veteran Julian Lane to announce his arrival onto the BKFC scene. But as you would expect, he's never too far removed from giving his take on the general happenings in the MMA world. And with an eye on this pivotal bout in his old division, Platinum seems to think that the fight could well come down to Jorge's ability to shut down Colby's wrestling. As a man who can see parallels between his own fighting style and attitude and that of Masvidal's, Perry is clearly hoping to see him take home the win over Covington. That said, if Jorge hasn't sharpened up his skills on the mat, Perry believes that Colby could have a field day with him. But in reality, given the beef that these two guys are sharing, there's every chance that we could get an all-out war come Saturday night.
I mean, they both seem to know a lot about each other. Jorge's going to try to strike with him, and he's coming back from, a tough fight for him. So he could be stronger than ever. And, his mental game is always so strong. So I don't know if it matters if either one of them get in each other's heads. If Colby can get a takedown and lay on him, but I know Jorge's been working on his grappling. And I know Jorge's the better striker of the two. So, I'm rooting for Jorge Masvidal.
Remember, if you're enjoying our content and want to see more, be sure to leave a like before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Aljamain Sterling. One man who clearly needs to get back into the cage and attempt to prove himself is the UFC bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling. Look, he has the belt, of that there is little doubt, but to say that Sterling is the best 135-pound fighter on the planet would simply not be true so long as Peter Yan remains in that #1 contender spot. But given that his own fight doesn't come around until April, Aljo can at least sit back and watch this weekend's main event as a fan. And by the sounds of things, he's pretty fired up, giving both men an equal chance of winning. Though he usually tends to back the wrestlers in this sport, in his own words, Sterling cannot look past Jorge's unique ability to find a wild finish. We saw it with Ben Askren and with Darren Till. And though Sterling believes that Covington's skill set can make him a nightmare for a fighter like Gamebred over 5 rounds, he's not willing to discount Masvidal's knack for shutting his opponent's lights out. As a fan of both men, Sterling is just about as close to 50-50 on this one as you could ever get. Thankfully, we, along with the bantamweight champion, don't have to wait long to get a definitive answer on how this bout plays out. All we can do now is just enjoy the build-up and watch closely as they begin to struggle amongst themselves for an early upper hand.
I really don't know. I always back the wrestlers, but with Masvidal, he surprises you like the same way he did with the Ben Askren fight, So I don't really know which way that's going to go. We know Colby Covington, he can take a shot. We know he's durable. We know he pushes forward. He can throw. Might not be the cleanest like Masvidal's type of combinations, but that wrestling is an equalizer. So I don't know who's going to win. I like both guys. I'm a fan of both. I'm a fan of the shtick of Covington. I think it's got a lot of people to tune in to watch him fight. And the guy can fight. At the end of the day, you can say what you want about him, he can fight. Masvidal, you can say what you want about him, the guy can fight. So at the end of the day, I think we're going to have two really good opponents getting in there and mixing it up. And I think the fans are going to be the ones that win.
Jamal Hill. The UFC's newest star Jamal Hill made one hell of a statement about his potential within the light heavyweight division as he brutally ran through Johnny Walker to steal away the Brazilian's finisher's hype in one almighty swoop. As far as breakout wins go, few this year will top that one. And with some serious buzz coming in from Hill from the MMA community, the question now is just how far he can go. And with an eye on the UFC 272 main event, though these guys fight 2 divisions below him, Jamal seems to have some very real interest, giving Colby props on his elite wrestling, going as far to say that it's just about as good as Kamaru Usman's. While Masvidal might explode and crack Covington's chin, if he can't, Hill seems to think that a slow dissection of Gamebred will be on the card. In MMA, pace can be as much of a weapon as any punch or kick thrown. And in the eyes of this 205-pound contender, few use it quite as well as Colby does. Jamal Hill's money is going on chaos for Saturday night.
Covington. I'm putting my money on that. I'm putting my money in. Whoever else wants to throw money on it. Just because Covington has that trump card he can go to. Trump. But no, he's got that trump card he can go to. He can just wrestle the shit out of him. And we've seen that can be that's a problem for Masvidal. I mean, especially if you can smother him, just like I think Covington's wrestling is up there on the level with Usman's, and which is why they don't grapple each other, which is why they don't even want to go test those waters with each other. I think Colby gets it done unless he just gets baptized right out the gate.
Jorge Masvidal. There's a certain coldness to Jorge Masvidal when he talks about Colby and what he plans on doing to him. Seriously, we know these guys don't like each other, but man, they seem completely intent on really doing some bodily harm on Saturday night. So when Jorge was asked for his exact prediction for the fight, His response was short and to the point. Basically, Gamebred made it clear that if he manages to put Covington in the hospital, he'll be on the right track. Masvidal may have spent a large portion of his career gaining a reputation as a man who would often fail to pull the trigger. But this more recent version of Jorge is nothing less than an absolute killer, a finisher who takes pride in his ability to punish those who stand against him, just as Ben Askren. And with an eye on the UFC 272 main event, if we were already excited for his clash with Colby, his own words on the subject seem to elevate this grudge match to another level entirely. Years upon years of tension will likely spill over into some hilarious back and forth when these two step onto the cage for this week's press conference. And if you know anything about either man, you'll know that they won't be willing to give the other an inch. The real battle begins long before the cage doors close. So expect fireworks with this one, folks.
In a very painful way, I want to send him to the hospital overnight. I feel like that's a good way to start. Wakes up in the hospital Monday morning, we're having the right type of conversation.
Colby Covington. And finally, we come to the second of the two coldest predictions of all. The promise from Masvidal's opponent, Covington, that saw him vow to put an almighty beatdown on his rival. Every time Colby is asked to get the specifics on how he will beat his friend-turned-enemy, he responds by simply stating that he's going to hurt him. He's going to make him suffer for what he sees as betrayal. Many people know that these two guys used to be training partners, but if you tune into most of the fights that these two had a few years back, you'll likely see each fighter cornering the other. To go from trusting one another with their mid-fight night coaching to swearing to truly hurt them. Yeah, this isn't your average grudge match, folks. And based on the way these two guys are talking, maybe it wouldn't be wise to hold out hope for a handshake when it's all over. You never do know, of course, but neither man has actually made a round and method prediction yet, instead mirroring each other's desire to hurt each other. Geez, guys, tell us what you really think. Either way, the general consensus seems to be that each man has a pretty clear route to victory. Now, will that be enough to see the winner get a third matchup with Kamaru Usman after 2 straight defeats? Who knows? But with the eyes of the MMA world fixated on UFC 272, you do get the feeling that Dana White and his team have given these guys the perfect stage to make their argument. And judging by their pre-fight comments, these two cannot wait to get their hands on one another.
Anytime I see him, dude, I want to send that guy straight to hell. And luckily I get to do it in the UFC Octagon next Saturday night on pay-per-view. And it's going to be bad, man. I'm going to make him pay. I'm going to make him suffer for just backstabbing me and turning his back and trying to run this fake narrative to the media. I see a lot of pain. I'm going to inflict so much pain on Jorge Masvidal. He's not going to be the same person ever again. He keeps talking about a baptism. It's not going to be a baptism. It's going to be a funeral. It's Jorge Masvidal's career-ending funeral. It's going to be violent. And I'm not going to finish it quick. I could easily finish it quick because I do it all the time behind closed doors when we used to train. But this one, I'm going to drag it out. I'm going to make him suffer. And you'll probably be the first time in UFC history you see a guy in a main event just verbally tap out and say he can't take no more of a beating.
And that will just about do it for this video. But who do you think will get their hand raised in this welterweight grudge match for the ages? Again, if you enjoyed today's video and want to see more, be sure to leave a like before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thanks for watching.